Hi, my name is Mick Cooper. I'm a professor of counselling psychology at the University of Roehampton in London and a therapist. And I'm particularly interested in the interface between what psychology is and what we do as therapists and then social change and creating a better society. And I was working on this book last couple of years, Psychology at the Heart of Social Change. And came across some amazing work by a group called the Wellbeing Economics Alliance, and this whole idea of wellbeing economics, which I thought was just so important for psychologists to know about, and therapists and counselors, because what it does is it really puts ideas of wellbeing and the work that we do as psychologists right at the heart of thinking about social policy and how to develop a better, more thriving society. So wellbeing economics is a kind of move against the idea that GDP, gross domestic product, is the be all and end all of a society's well-being, that it's all about money. Because they had a debate about this in the UK Parliament recently, and Rebecca Long-Bailey from Labour was saying, you could have like loads more car crashes and that would increase GDP, because you'd have car companies being able to sell more cars and you'd have people being able to do repairs. Is it a good thing for society? Absolutely not. Car crashes are not a good thing. And if we have a society which is focused around GDP, which is about economic growth, which is about money, it's not putting people's well-being right at the heart. GDP, economic growth, is a different question to what makes people thriving and what makes people happy. So wellbeing economics is essentially saying, let's actually think about how can we make a society really thinks about what's best for people, what makes people happy, whether it's kind of relationships, whether it's finding meaning and purpose, whether it's having a sense of self-esteem. That those are really the important things, and those are the things that we should build society around. And that's, I think, for psychologists is so important, because as psychologists we know that people don't live in a vacuum. Our clients don't live in a vacuum. That things like poverty, racism, sexism, homophobia, all these things have massive effects on people's psychological well-being. That making money and having money certainly is one thing, but a society which is based around the drive to money is like, it's like a kind of psychological disorder, for want of a better word, in itself, because people get really so focused, nothing else matters. It's what in my book I talk about rogue goals. This idea is that goals can kind of take us over. And in a capitalist society which is focused around money, often we get, you see again and again people whose lives are driven by money, by achieving, because that's what society sets out for them. Or the other side of that is people have a deep and profound sense of failure because they haven't lived up to the expectations and the demands of a very money-oriented society. The problem with money is not money per se, but it's just like it's one good thing that we're all fighting for. Rather than things like relationships being much more valued, self-esteem being valued, a sense of meaning and purpose being valued. GDP and having society based around money just doesn't take into account any of that. And we know that, brilliant work on a book called The Spirit Level shows that where you've got people, some people really rich and some people really poor, as you get where you're focused just on money. Some people will achieve that, but actually that unequalness doesn't really do great for either. The people who are at the bottom of the pile, of course, feel terrible about themselves often, but also the people at the top of the pile feel more under threat because they know the disparity, that it creates stress. And there's really clear evidence that the more unequal societies have lower well-being. Societies like Sweden, for instance, Norway, some of the Norse countries, where there is more equality, again, there's more well-being because it's more shared out and there's more of a sense of kind of community, I imagine, and things being fairer. WEAll and the Wellbeing Economic Alliance, Wellbeing Economics, is a really simple idea, but it's about let's put well-being right at the heart of political thinking, so that we can create a society that genuinely thrives rather than being driven by money and economies. What they say a wellbeing economy is an economy designed to serve people and the planet, not the other way around. Rather than treating economic growth as an end in itself, and in and of itself, and pursuing it at all costs. A well-being economy puts our human and planetary needs at the center of its activities. Sorry, just so I'm reading this from the website. It's a great website. Ensuring that these needs are all equally met by default. And some of the principles that we all talk about are principles of fairness, so that everybody has equal opportunity to thrive, which is so badly needed in our society when so many people earn so much of the wealth compared with others. Participation. If you know about 5 ways to well-being in the psychology field, this idea that if we're participating, we're volunteering, we're giving, that's all part of thriving and well-functioning. Nature, of course, we've got to protect the environment. I mean, that's one of the terrible things about just being focused on GDP. It doesn't take into account the fact that if we destroy our planet, we're not going to have a society, let alone well-being. It's got to be there. And work by, for instance, Kate Raworth on donor economics, which is really linked into the work of Wellbeing Economics, really makes the case for arguing that we've got to think about the limits that we're living within and living within our limits, not just growth, and endless growth. Another principle is about purpose. You know, amazing to see a group developed mainly by people in the economics field thinking about purpose and meaning. This is such a great bridge for us as psychologists, and also dignity. And we know, of course, as therapists, just how important, how central dignity is to people's well-being, and it's just as a basic principle for living well. And so what Wellbeing Economics does is that it develops indicators to think about how we can measure well-being, you know, and it's kind of tough. So, for instance, in New Zealand, where they've really taken this work forward, feeling lonely has a cost per year of minus $17,000, about £9,000. Living in a colder home, cost of about $7,000. You know, that they've tried to monetize some of these psychological experiences like feeling lonely. And on one hand, you might say, oh my God, that's even worse. How can they do that? But at least it's kind of putting it on the spreadsheet. I mean, you know, feeling lonely is not going to be a minus $17,000 for everybody. But the fact that there's a sum to it means that you can put it into politics. You can put it into policies and actually say, these things are important. Having a sense of purpose, God knows how much having a sense of purpose is worth. But at least someone's thinking about it and thinking about how we can add it in to when we think about society. And they've done this in New Zealand in 2019. They had this amazing wellbeing budget. You can read it. You can read all about it. Led by Jacinda Ardern. The government departments putting forward policies had to show that these actually improve well-being, that it wasn't just about GDP, it was about improving the well-being, the thriving and the functioning, that these policies would actually make a difference. You know, New Zealand's done some amazing work. What's brilliant about wellbeing economies is that they really have been implemented around the world. You have the wellbeing governments, WEAll, including New Zealand, Iceland, I think Finland's another one, where these ideas about wellbeing economics are right at the heart now, the center of policy. I mean, what an amazing combination of psychology and economics. So if you're interested in wellbeing economics and want to find out more, go to the website of WEAll, which is weall.org, and you can find out more information there about everything about the Wellbeing Economics, Wellbeing Economic Alliance, the work that they're doing. Sign up. I'm a member. I think it's a fantastic organization. I don't think there's a catch. There might be a catch, but as far as I know, there isn't a catch. It just seems really committed, dedicated people thinking right at the cutting edge of actually psychology. A bit of a shame it's not coming from us psychologists ourselves, but it's great to see that this bridge is developing between economics, psychology, and lots of other fields, sociology, where we can really think about how we create a better, thriving world, drawing on some really in-depth psychological principles, but also linked in with other areas and other understanding.